A Filipino girl group walked onto the stage at Coachella. It wasn't a headline slot, nor was it at a prime time. And yet, by the end of the weekend, their set had become one of the most talked about performances of the entire festival. So, who is BINI? How did they get here? And why did this Coachella performance change everything? Who do you think the biggest girl groups in the world are right now? Chances are you're thinking of Blackpink, maybe Twice, Cat's Eye. There's something all of these big groups have in common. They're all backed by large, established agencies who have already produced successful groups. And I say this not to discount the talent of these groups, but to emphasize that earning global recognition is not easy, and usually requires large amounts of money and resources to even have a shot. For groups like BINI, the climb to global recognition is much more difficult. Not only do they have less capital and resources, but they're competing with the most established companies in the world, who are actively debuting group after group like it's no one's business. But even with setbacks, like debuting during the pandemic and slow commercial growth as a group, BINI still rose to stardom in the Philippines and are now bringing their success to the global stage. So, who is BINI? BINI is a Philippine pop or P-pop girl group made up of 8 members. Each member was handpicked from a series of auditions held by their company, ABS-CBN. The original plan for BINI was to go global right away. Looking at the global success of groups like BTS and Blackpink, ABS-CBN thought to themselves, you know what, Filipinos are natural-born singers and dancers. If we scour the country for the best talent, put them through intense training, their debut will surely be a success, right? Wrong. Well, kind of. I mean, it's no secret that many Filipinos are naturally gifted at singing, hence the country's love for karaoke. So the idea to put naturally gifted singers in a group is well informed, but they were wrong with trying to go global first. Without the resources and experience that only companies like HYBE, JYP, SM possess, you simply just cannot break in that easily. And BINI absolutely did not have it easy. Following the auditions, the 8 members continued training and living together under the same roof. Every single day was dedicated to singing, dancing, and improving their performance ability. Since their training period overlapped with the pandemic, this meant that many of the BINI members had to choose between going home and staying in Manila to train for BINI, and all of them chose to stay. The following year, the members finally found out the name of their group, BINI. The name comes from the Tagalog word bini-bini, meaning young lady. In their words, they hope to represent what a modern Filipina is. Just 1 month later, they released their pre-debut single, The Coconut Nut. This song was a remixed cover meant to pay homage to their Filipino roots. And if there's any testament to how far BINI has come from their debut, I think this would be it. It was also revealed that since BINI didn't have a stylist at this time, the members borrowed and upcycled their own clothes, even sewing together specific looks to use in their music video. The following year, after The Coconut Nut, BINI officially debuted with the single Born to Win. The reaction was overall pretty positive, with the music video reaching over 200,000 views in its first 24 hours. But still, nothing groundbreaking. And still, nowhere near where BINI wanted to be. And I'd like to note that this is all happening in 2021, so at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, adding another layer of challenges in terms of in-person performances. For the next 3 years, BINI continued releasing music and gained more recognition. But slowly. For context, they only hit 200,000 monthly listeners on Spotify in January of 2024. To put that into perspective, Cordis, a group coming out of HYBE, debuted less than a year ago and already have over 7 million monthly listeners on Spotify. The resources that these big, established companies have really do make a difference in how fast they can capture and dominate a market. But BINI hitting those 200,000 listeners on Spotify was still a huge turning point and would change their career trajectory forever. November 2023. 2 years into their career, BINI released Pantropiko, the song that would become the nation's anthem. Upon release, Pantropiko actually didn't make any significant waves. In fact, it performed just as well as any other BINI releases at the time. But miraculously, 2 months into the song's release, there was a sudden surge in listenership, and the song even appeared on the viral songs chart on Spotify. The surge continued through February and March, and by April 2024, the song had reached number 1 on the Billboard Philippines chart, making BINI the first P-pop group to ever top the chart. And BINI had broken through 3 million Spotify listeners. Remember, they were only at 200,000 just in January of that year. The success of the song likely felt like a miracle to the BINI members and to their company. I mean, this is the moment they were waiting for. And this song launched them to ultimate success in the Philippines, establishing BINI as a household name. Pantropiko's success can be attributed to multiple elements converging in the perfect way. I could make an entire video on just Pantropiko, but just to name a few of the reasons why it blew up. First, the dance, one of the most recognizable elements of Pantropiko. And it was actually mainly choreographed by one of BINI's own members, Sheena. Choreography for these kinds of groups are usually created by an outside choreographer, but this time, Sheena was challenged to create the choreography herself. Sheena even documented her first choreography draft and posted it on TikTok, garnering over 2.4 million likes. Sheena being a part of the choreo and sharing the behind-the-scenes story of its creation made the dance feel accessible and earned, not fabricated. And the dance was also just so good. It made anyone who watched also want to get up and dance and be a part of the song. Another element that pushed Pantropiko to ultimate success was the timing. Although it was released in November, the song started to blow up around January the following year and continued surging into March, which is usually the official start of summer in the Philippines. And if you've heard the song, it's literally about love on a tropical island. It's about as Filipino and as summer of a song as you can get. Lastly, Pantropiko was recognized by other celebrities, allowing BINI to cross over into the mainstream. K-pop group ITZY performed a brief dance cover of the song at their Manila concert. The biggest Filipino TikToker posted a cover on her account, and celebrities all over the country were partaking in dance challenges, covers, and we're talking about BINI. This type of discourse was exactly what BINI needed to go mainstream, and it was only up from there. BINI, shortly after, held their first solo concert, and tickets sold out in under 2 hours. The demand was so high that they ended up adding more tour dates around the Philippines and turned it into a nationwide tour. They also performed at KCON in July of that year as the first Filipino pop act ever to do so. Then, in November, they held a 3-day sold-out concert called the Grand BINIverse. And these concerts were no joke, often running for 2.5 to 3 hours, with each show having multiple segments and even guests. And then last year, in 2025, they had a record year. They were the first Filipino act to sell out the Philippine Arena, which is the biggest concert venue in the entire country. So when I say they reached ultimate fame in the Philippines, I mean they reached ultimate fame. And then, just a few months ago, in September of 2025, BINI received news that would change their lives. Coachella announced them as part of the 2026 lineup. April 2026, literally just a few weeks ago at the time of making this video, BINI became the first ever Filipino girl group to perform at Coachella. BINI's time slot was actually one of the earlier ones. Although Coachella is a big festival, There's always a chance that you don't fill out the audience, and BINI members even mentioned that they were concerned about that, but the opposite happened. BINI ended up absolutely packing the Mojave tent. The crowd was energized, dancing, singing along, bringing together existing fans, and making new ones then and there. I want to go back to what I said earlier for a moment. BINI's company, ABS-CBN, initially wanted to go global because they saw the global success of groups like BTS and Blackpink and felt that Filipinos also deserved to be on a global stage. And while I also believe that is true, it just isn't that easy or simple, especially for companies with less experience. The reality is that you have to build the foundation, which is exactly what BINI ended up doing. They trained, worked their way up, and then achieved ultimate success in their home country. Through that, they were able to have this Coachella opportunity and officially debut themselves to global audiences. And they absolutely seized this opportunity. Both of their Weekend 1 and Weekend 2 performances were nearly flawless, filled with incredible live vocals, gorgeous custom outfits that pay homage to the Philippines, and dance breaks that showed that they're more than just singers, they're performers, and they showed up not only for themselves but for the Philippines. This performance meant a lot to so many people, for Filipinos watching from home, for Filipino Americans, for Southeast Asian representation. This was a moment of genuine pride. BINI didn't get to Coachella by diluting what makes them Filipino. They got there because of it. So if there's anything you take away from this video, I hope it's this. Their company wanted to go global first, but instead they built something so undeniably Filipino, so genuinely beloved in the Philippines, and brought it to a global stage once they were completely ready. The question now is what they will do with all of this momentum, how they continue to grow, what music they make next, and how they introduce themselves to the world on their own terms. If their trajectory so far tells us anything, I think they're going to be just fine. What do you think? And are you a fan of BINI? Let me know in the comments.